Hello everyone, I'm Gautam. Before I start, I have a question. How many of you are familiar with Prometheus, the project? All right, okay, everyone. Okay, cool. Yeah, I am a software engineer at Grafana. Actually, just yesterday I became a software engineer. Before that, I was a PM. Um, and yeah, I'm also a Prometheus team member and maintainer, and that is kind of how I started my career. And today I'm going to talk about like kind of as the Prometheus project grew in popularity and size, like the challenges that we faced as a project and how we're kind of tackling them. Anyone else who kind of is a maintainer on a different open source project is looking for like guidance on running open source projects? Okay. Not many. So yeah, let's see how useful this can be for you as well. At least it'll give you an idea of how open source projects run behind the scenes from like a maintainership perspective. Okay, cool. So I want to talk about how I became a team member. So I was doing an internship in Bangalore in 2016 where I deployed Prometheus and I felt like I had some time. So I decided, hey, you know what? Let me try and contribute to this project. So I sent an email to their mailing list saying, hey, someone was looking for some help on the storage engine. Where can I read more about it? So this was June 2016. I had a few exchanges with them. I said I'll do things, and then, like a typical open source contributor, I disappeared. And then later, next year, it was GSOC time, and in the GSOC list of projects, Prometheus was there. So like March 2017, I reach out again, and this time I'll get paid for it. So I guess I had a little bit more motivation to do things. So I started contributing bug fixes, started like working with the people, collaborating with them on a few PRs. I picked a project. All of this was good. And my mentor realized it was the first GSOC Prometheus was doing. And my mentor realized he has to do this thing called evaluations. He, being an IC engineer, did not want to do this. So he made his company hire me as an intern. It was CoreOS. He said, you get to do the same thing. You'll get paid the same amount of money, but you get to visit Berlin. Prometheus started in Berlin at SoundCloud, so most of the team members were there. And so yeah, after a few months of contributing to the project, I went to Berlin in 2017. And then the Prometheus team members were like, oh, Gautam's visiting. Let's go have some Indian food. So we went to this very typical German Indian place called Amrit and had some very mediocre Indian food. But the best part was we were like having chai outside after we were discussing a lot of things. And they were like, actually, Gautam has been contributing long enough. We should make him a team member. So, and everyone was like, yeah, we should make him a team member. And turns out like they sent an email about it, and then I became a team member. And then they were also like, oh, Max, who's sitting here, has been contributing as well. We should make Max a team member. So that's how Max also became a team member. So that's kind of how I became a team member. A few months of contributions. But here's Matthias, a friend of mine, also a Prometheus team member. He actually started way earlier. He heard about Prometheus at a 2016 meetup in Berlin. He built and maintained a lot of exporters. Like the main one, the most popular one I would say is the Elasticsearch exporter to monitor Elasticsearch. And he's been doing a lot of things in the community. He joined Red Hat after Red Hat acquired CoreOS. He worked on Prometheus Operator, Thanos, many different things. And then in 2021, so basically 5 years after he started contributing, he became a team member. So there's like a massive difference. And we'll see why that is happening. So if I kind of look back at 2017, 2018 Prometheus, I would kind of describe it as a jolly bunch of people building something together. So like there's a bunch of Googlers, they go from Google to this startup called SoundCloud. They realize that the existing monitoring systems there were not great. So in typical Google fashion, they wrote their own. And then soon a small community formed. So there was one consulting business, like one person providing Prometheus consulting. And then CoreOS was paying my mentor Fabian to work on Prometheus. So there's like maybe two people who get paid to work on Prometheus, but most people do it because they really want to be part of the community. They like the project. And the really cool part of this is there's no manager. So if you find something is fun, you work on it. And that's kind of how I did it as well. And if you contribute long enough, we'll get into that, you're now part of the Prometheus team. And once you're part of the Prometheus team, nothing really changes. Like, you get to make decisions, I would say, but like we rarely made decisions that required a vote. But mostly it gave me bragging rights on LinkedIn, and I'll take it. It also got me a job at Grafana, so I'm also happy about that. All right. So 6 months-ish after I joined team, they're like, okay, let's actually formalize this. The CNCF was like, you're now a CNCF project. Now you have to have a governance. So the initial governance was formed and merged. And yeah, basically this is the first version of the governance. So lazy consensus is the default mechanism for making decisions. So what is lazy consensus? You propose something. If nobody says anything, it's approved. So this works because, again, you're working on things that you're passionate about, and very few people are getting paid. So they're like, okay, he's passionate about it, or they're passionate about it, let them work on it. If somebody objects and the discussion goes nowhere, and if there is no consensus on something, that is when we vote by majority. Like, then there's a vote is called, and we probably voted twice in 7 or 8 years. So this is also why, like, what do you do as a team member? Same thing. But to become a Prometheus team member, you need to be proposed by an existing team member, and there needs to be a 2/3 majority that needs to say yes, and then that you're in. Same thing for out. And because we only have one tier, like Prometheus team, you join and you GitHub admin on all the repos, and you have like full access to everything. This worked really, really well in the beginning. And yeah, like we also kind of said, if you have ongoing contributions for at least 3 months, you are eligible to become a team member. And then Kubernetes happened, and then a million people started using Kubernetes, and they eventually started using Prometheus, and it just like shot up. There was this massive hockey stick growth in the Prometheus project in terms of adoption, in terms of usage, and things like that. So, and then the initial version of the governance doc, like, it didn't really work for the newer scale of the Prometheus community anymore. So I put together a doc 2 years ago saying we need to fix this. Like, 2 years is kind of how long I've been working on this. And yeah, like if you kind of look at the top problems of the initial governance, so the main thing is no clear path to membership. Like, it's not very clear for a community member on what do they need to do to become a member. So the easiest way is to know someone who's already on team, and they can guide you, they can propose you, they can say, hey, you should go talk, like you should go answer questions on the community channel. Like, they can kind of set you up. But like this, who becomes a team member was not very clear. And I think that kind of discouraged a lot of the more serious contributors. We also had a hesitation to add new members. So like we were at like 18 or 25-ish members. And even when there was a vote call, like a lot of inactive members were there. And we were afraid if we had too many people and not enough people say yes, like the votes won't pass. And if there were too many inactive people, we can't even change the governance because we need 2/3 majority. So like the bar kept going higher and higher to add a new member. Also, because everyone is team, there's no roles, there's no organizing. If a security report comes in, who looks at it? Well, whoever has free time. What if nobody has free time? Like there's no one assigned to do security. For example, or like talk to the CNCF. Like there's no roles around this. Everyone's team. It works when you're like 10 people, but now you're like 5 people who are kind of active and 5 people who are kind of inactive and things like that. And this is when it starts breaking down. Grafana Labs is like the company I work for. We also have a hosted Prometheus solution. So we were investing a lot in the Prometheus community, and we had a lot of people who are like Prometheus team members. Now, the problem was Prometheus is a community project. It's not a Grafana project, and we don't want anyone to think it's a Grafana project. So we want to make sure that there's enough diversity in the team membership. If there's too many Grafana members, that doesn't look good. So even though there were more active engineers working on Prometheus at Grafana, we did not propose them because it would like skew the numbers, and this was kind of unfair to the newer members working on Prometheus. That was, yeah. And then there's a bunch of other issues that I've represented in the doc here that you can see. And again, we kind of responded to it a little bit too late, in my opinion. All right, so we started working on this. So now that we've kind of identified, the first step is like identify all the issues in a design doc. And now kind of look at proposals, look at how you can solve this with a new governance structure. So yeah, the goal was to go from like less than 30 team members to more than 300 team members who are making decisions, who are autonomous and stuff like that. Kind of scale the community, at the same time scale the velocity. So how did we approach it? Like, we decided to take a look at other projects, open source projects in our space that are similar to us in terms of size or in the same industry, that are doing quite well in terms of community, that don't have the same problems. And then first thing we picked was Core DNS. It's a tiny community, tiny project. And I was like, yeah, but like it still kind of works. It's still heavily used. And what they have is something called a steering committee, with the maintainers voting in the steering committee every 2 years, I think. So the tenure is 2 years. And then there's Kubernetes, which is the obvious one, of course. And the more I started looking at it, the more I started scratching my head, because there's like many docs. So there's something called special interest groups, something called working groups, and like multiple SIGs can be part of a working group and things like that. But what is really cool is there's so many things that are being done and so many people involved. They kind of delegate enough things to each of these subgroups. And if there's no consensus, there's like an escalation path. And I thought that was really cool. They have a steering committee where active members, like basically people who are actively contributing, they don't need to be maintainers. Even if they're opening 10 issues a year, they're also an active member and they get to vote into the steering committee. And yeah, they have this really nice, not complicated at all, diagram explaining how they make decisions and like resolve conflicts. And then there's another project called Knative, which is like the same thing. Steering committee with contributor voting. What is interesting, like when I started looking at it, they also had something called a technical committee and a steering committee, and I couldn't really differentiate between the two. And then 1 year later, when I looked at it, they don't have a technical committee anymore. But the most interesting thing was OpenTelemetry, where they have a steering committee with active contributor voting. They also have a technical committee. The steering committee has a tenure of 2 years, I think, but the technical committee does not have a tenure. So if you're doing a lot of spec work, you're kind of voted into the TC. But like it has that problem, like the same people are in the TC at all the times, and it's not easy to get into a TC if you want. So yeah, like we wanted something with the steering committee, mainly because then we can have like a lot of maintainers, but a 5 to 7 member steering committee with only maximum 2 members from one company kind of solves a lot of this problem. Like we are happy to add more and more people. We can still make decisions because it's a small core committee. There's no over-representation, and the steering committee can make sure that the security, like they can delegate things to people to make sure security reports are being answered and things like that. So that's kind of what we went with. I want to give a shout out to the CNCF contributor SIG, because what they did was they realized that they have 1 million projects now, so they need to have governance for each of those. So they created like nice templates around governance that go from simple to complicated. So there's like the maintainer council template, which is similar to what Prometheus had, the simplest one. And then there's the steering committee election, which is kind of what we were going towards, and the federated sub-projects, which is the Kubernetes-ish governance. So we picked the steering committee elections. We found, we basically rewrote a lot of that to kind of match our circumstances and our use cases. And then we created this long governance talk. And we solicited feedback one-on-one with many people who are active in the community, who really care about this problem. And the good thing about soliciting feedback one-on-one is like, every time we talk, they told us interesting things that we didn't consider, but we incorporated every time it became better. And it also makes it like there'll be a lot less discussion when we propose it to a group. And even though it's a lot of upfront work, I think it helped us move forward quickly. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things like how do we automatically remove inactive members? How do we propose new members so that even the shy people, they get a chance? And like there's so many things that they brought up that we incorporated. And yeah. And now we have a governance proposal. So how does that look? So basically we have 3 roles and a steering committee. So this, like, you can kind of think of this as like a ladder. So you do anything, you just whisper Prometheus to your friend, you're a contributor. Like you organize a meetup, you talk about it, you open a PR, anything, you're just you're a contributor. You can call yourself a Prometheus contributor. Like it's just bragging rights, nothing beyond that. But if you have enough contributions, like 20 contributions a year, this could be comments, conference talks, blog posts and stuff, we will invite you to the GitHub org of Prometheus. You will have permission to do nothing, but you can show this badge on your GitHub profile saying, hey, I'm an active contributor of the Prometheus project. What you can also do as a member is then vote in the steering committee and also stand as a steering committee member. So you don't need to be a maintainer to become a steering committee member. Like if you're an end user, you're organizing meetups, you're like talking about Prometheus, you're promoting it. And if you think if you think you can represent like the end users or the community in the steering committee, you can also kind of like run for the steering committee. And then, yeah. So you don't need to be a maintainer to do this. And again, I think one of the steering committee members will be someone who has not written code for Prometheus in over a decade. So yeah. So, and then you have maintainers of like sub-projects and projects like alert manager and stuff. So that's you're maintaining it, you have merge rights. And then we have the steering committee of 5 to 7 individuals with at most 2 from one company. We will vote for them every 2 years, and we'll kind of stagger the rotation. So like in the first year, like 3 people will leave, and the second year, 2 people will leave. So there's some continuity. And then the voting happens with the active members and maintainers. And yeah, the idea is like, again, to get to 3 million maintainers. At that point, I think we'll have to adopt, if that ever happens, we'll have to adopt the Kubernetes governance model. But I hope that's a good problem, and I hope it happens, yeah. Yeah, membership, I think basically is 20 contributions in a 12-month period. And if you do it on GitHub, we can kind of track it. But there's also an exception form if you're like a contributor that's doing blog posts, meetups, podcasts, and stuff like that. If you want to become a maintainer, one of the existing maintainer nominates you. And if none of the other maintainers object, basically you become a maintainer for that project. So I think that's lightweight enough. It doesn't involve the steering committee or anything, and I quite like that. Yeah, so essentially for the steering committee, it's 5 to 7 people. We have to figure out that number pretty soon. Any member is eligible to run for the steering committee, and any member can vote, and it's a 2-year term. This is quite standard, but I'm kind of happy that the decisions are happening with an active committee that meets every month, so that we are not afraid of adding more and more people. So what is the status? So this is on me. I opened a PR on Feb 12th, and then there's been a million comments on it. And I thought I'll work on it during my sabbatical, and I decided like, okay, I have other things to work on during my sabbatical. So yeah, haven't made much progress. However, we have consensus on everything. The only thing we're missing consensus on is the voting mechanism. Like, which voting mechanism do we pick? And we realized that most of the other projects use a Condorcet-based voting mechanism, which is great for picking one representative, but it's not very good for picking a committee. But no one else implements a committee picking algorithm, so we are kind of stuck there. So we'll soon, in the next few weeks, have a vote to pick the voting mechanism, and I think then we can have a Prometheus 2.0 governance. Yeah, one of the things that we did do before we kind of kicked this off is we looked at all our active members that passed that bar, and we just invited everyone. So we kind of went from, I think, 28, and we added 21 new members to the team, mainly because we realized we're also a little too afraid of the consequences of adding new members. And like, I think that kind of was counterproductive. And we were just like, let's just add everyone. And then they will also get to kind of chime in on this governance decision. They will also get to vote on this. I think Suraj, yeah, you can see like last name, Suraj. He's just sitting there, who's also one of our newer team members. I kind of feel bad for Suraj because he joins as a team member and then we say, okay, no more team, it's steering committee, you're a maintainer now. So yeah, cool. I mean, we also have mechanisms of migrating from the old governance to the new governance with like a bootstrap steering committee and stuff, but not super interesting. Yeah. Cool. The summary is, I think the Prometheus's initial very simple governance model worked. So don't complicate things until you hit a certain scale. Also, don't wait too long because it's hard to make changes like this. But yeah, like start simple with your open source project, make it simple, make it accessible. And if you're going to make changes like these, it will take time, especially things like voting mechanisms. Like that, I was like, it took me a month to wrap my head around all the problems and all the research papers around the voting mechanisms. And I was like, oh, wow, I never really thought that the voting mechanism would stop this. The CNCF templates are really good if you're considering a new governance for an open source project. Go look at the templates. And yeah, like I think the idea for soliciting feedback one-on-one instead of just like dumping it on a group and then everyone discusses, I think that works quite well. Yeah, that's basically everything that I had around like how Prometheus is approaching like changing its governance as the project grows, as the project matures and popularity grows. Cool. Any questions? Okay, we have a question. Yes. Oh, what voting mechanism are we going to use to figure out the voting mechanism? It turns out we don't have the new governance yet. So we're going to use the voting mechanism of the existing government, which is a yes-no vote, and you need 2/3 majority. Actually, we are not changing the governance. We're not adding a new member, so we only need majority, simple majority of more than half people, half the members saying yes. So that's what we're going to use. Huh? Oh, how to become a team member? Oh, yeah, that's so essentially good question. As I said, in the current governance, I think the easiest thing is to pair with an existing team member so they can guide you. But in the new one, what you do is you contribute, you become a member, you talk about it, you just actively help the users and maybe become a maintainer and then stand for this elections, pitch for yourself, and then people hopefully will vote you into the steering committee. But it's quite easy to become a member. You just need to have, say, thumbs up 20 times a year. So that should be good enough, yeah. Yeah, cool.
Outside governance?
Yes.
So you started working through your way into an internship and you worked around it. So I'm not from an IIT. So what core skills you learned that help you focus and drive you through into that development phase that you can handle so much being a core and a big project concept?
Oh, it's again. I think one is time and patience. What you need is you need to put like a consistent 5-10 hours a week for like a few months, and I think you can easily become a maintainer in any CNCF project. Mainly because the need for that is there. And what really helped me is like my patience of putting printfs everywhere and trying to understand how it works and like spending 6, 10, 20 hours on a single bug so that I can have a fair handle of things. What is really interesting though is I took a semester off to work on Prometheus, and because no one else was getting paid to work on Prometheus, I became like the #1 contributor in 4 months. Because again, I was like working on this full time and for free, sitting at home. But like again, this is true for a lot of open source projects. So I think what you just need is consistency, time, and patience. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.